down and
Yeah, great.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We would like to introduce our weekly live discussion for Autism Awareness Month. Today's our third session, and the lives are taking place every Tuesday at 4 p.m. UAE time. Race and Usma AXA Coaching are collaborating this month to support Autism Awareness Month and share first-hand stories from the community and how we all work together for a more inclusive society. In today's live, we have Danish and Farah. Welcome, guys.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
having us.
You're welcome. Farah's a mother to Suleiman. She's an amazing mother to Suleiman. I've been watching and following her on Instagram for some time now. She's an ABA therapist and a special educator. And then we have Danish here, again, an amazing, wonderful father, hands-on father, I'd like to say, to Suleiman. He's a TV commercials director, author, teacher, certified NLP practitioner, and Sunrise program practitioner. He combines his experience of raising a happy autistic child together with his NLP training to help parents raise confident, empathetic, God conscious children. So, guys, welcome on board, and we'll move on to our first question of the day, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Brilliant. So, just a little bit about your journey with Suleiman, really, and we're just curious to know how you came to educating him at home and how it really started.
Basically, my brother has autism. So when Suleiman was born, he was showing all the signs. I could pick it up almost immediately. We had confused relatives who thought that I was overthinking it, but Alhamdulillah, I was able to, see the signs and give him the help he needed at the time he needed. So we started like with every other parent. We wanted him to be mainstream right away. And we did everything to make that possible. We didn't care about the money, how much money we were putting in.
Yeah.
We used to argue about that a couple of times, but then he would give in because he would assume that, she knows what she's doing because she has a brother on the spectrum and, that's how it's done. And somewhere down the line, I think we both realized how much hard work it was to keep him in mainstream school because all the work, all the effort was coming from our side. And even though the school did take him on, the only reason the school took him on was because we said we'll provide everything, we'll do everything, and we did. And then eventually, like, after 4 years of mainstreaming,
Yeah.
right,
I mean, yeah.
we kind of burnt out. We were like, we can't keep doing this. And our family was growing. And the amount of money we were pouring into Suleiman, we just knew that that was not the solution. We had to, think out of the box, try something different. We tried going to centers after that, which was,
We did centers for a long time.
we did centers.
Yeah, exactly. From
And this
day
was
one,
all in Dubai.
yeah,
So
we did.
centers aren't cheap in Dubai.
Yeah, centers aren't cheap anywhere, and we were always in a certain center at some point in time
Yeah.
every week, from speech to occupational therapy to VBT to whatever is the
You
latest
name it.
fad
Been
that
there.
came out and therapy that came out and anybody that promised the miracle cure.
Yeah.
We were on it to the extent where there was a time when we had an in-house therapist that we had brought in
From the Philippines.
from the Philippines, trained her so that she could essentially be Suleiman's therapist. And she was on vacation for 4 weeks. And Farah couldn't bear the thought of 4 weeks of Suleiman not doing anything or not
Well,
being in therapy.
To add in there, I was pregnant with my second child, and I was like, I need to keep this kid
Third.
busy. Yeah, I need to keep this kid busy, and I can't do that in my current state. So yeah, but we went again with pouring in more money,
And
just
stuff.
so that
and
he had a place to go in summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think,
Homeschooling. So the question was homeschooling. And I'd been a big fan of alternative ways of educating yourself, not just a typical mainstream school. I have nothing against mainstream schools. I just think that the school isn't my objective. The learning is my objective. The degree isn't my objective. It's the learning that comes with it. And so I try to convince Farah that the idea that, and this is 6-7 years ago,
7 years ago,
that it doesn't, degrees don't matter anymore. An O-level certificate doesn't mean much. A degree,
yeah, the world is
bachelor's,
changing.
master's, it doesn't matter. Skills matter. And if I can get my kid to be skilled faster at something, then that's what I want. So I kept telling her that the homeschooling idea is better, but obviously it's a large undertaking and something that I knew that she would have to kind of take the
I needed the support.
shoulder the entire thing. And so it took her a while, but then I think the
We
thing
found
that
our circle of
we
people.
found a
basically.
circle of people that kind of said, listen,
Yeah.
it can be done, you just need to relax a little bit. And I was always like, I think parents take, no offense to anybody, but like I think parents take the idea of educating their kids a little bit more seriously than they should. I think the fear of my kid will, if my
Left
kid
behind.
doesn't graduate from this a certain university, that he won't be successful, is such a fallacy. Because if you look around the world today and some of the most successful people around, it's not that they didn't complete college. It's that what they did in college has nothing to do with why they're successful. They're skilled at a particular thing. They've built their personalities, their own self-belief, their confidence. And in many of these things, school wasn't teaching. Not only was it not teaching those things, it was actually harming those things. So, for example, my second son, Harun, uh, you know, has had a speech delay and he was aware of it. And school actually made it worse because
Made him realize
it
that.
made him realize, it made him more of an introvert, it made him more, it added to his levels of anxiety, which to this day we're kind of,
Still working with.
working on, to build his own self-belief and confidence and stuff. And so that's where homeschooling came in. Para bought in, we found a circle of people, and I think that's the most important thing, that if you find a tribe, if you find your own circle of people that have the same beliefs, you can support each other and kind of explain, work through those challenges.
Wow, that's lovely. I really, yeah, and you've mentioned learning. It's not about the school, it's about what learning looks like and how learning should take place. So what kind of skills are you working on with Suleiman and or have been in the past? And in terms of your academic side of things, what are you focusing on with him?
Academic wise, it's all like life skills right now. We want him to be independent because at the end of the day, we don't want him to be a burden on any one of his siblings. So he should be able to take care of his own needs. And I know we've moved to Pakistan and there's a lot of help available here. So people don't do their own work themselves, like even something as simple as washing their own dishes. So that is something we actually had to spend a lot of time on Suleiman, that he has to learn to clean up after himself. So he's aware if he's wearing dirty clothes or clean clothes, like simple self-care, self-management, something we don't think about at all usually. But for these kids, it's very difficult to train them about these things. So alhamdulillah, we've been able to teach him all of that. And in terms of academic skills, it's all functional literacy that we're teaching him, that when he goes out and he reads a sign, it should mean something to him. He should understand that this store is open from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. That should mean something to him. It's not just about being able to read, but there's no comprehension. So that's what actually we're working on, just functional literacy and self-care and being able to ask for help if he's being wronged. Yeah. And empathy.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
And
that
how's he taking? Sorry,
Sorry.
how's he taking to that?
He's actually excellent. For all my 4 kids, he's the only one I don't need to worry about.
Yeah.
He will shower on time. He'll change his clothes. He'll be always be neat and clean, and like clockwork. Like with the other ones, I'm running after them,
Did you take
smelling,
your shower? Did you
look,
brush your teeth?
inspecting their teeth and touching their hair to see if their shampoo was applied, or
Because they're lying half of the time.
like checking their shirts and going, "Weren't you wearing this last night? And why are you wearing that again?" And with Suleiman, I don't have to. 6 o'clock is shower time. He's gonna take his shower. He's gonna come out, he's comb his hair. He's gonna be, in terms of hygiene, he's excellent.
And he's actually the typical big brother because he makes sure that the kids that his siblings are up for school, because now they have started school when we moved to Lahore. He makes sure that they're up. He actually comes with us to drop them to school, comes back, has his breakfast, and then he gets ready for his school day. So he's very protective of his siblings. He knows what they shouldn't be doing and should be doing. So I think in that sense.
So he's actually the
he
easiest to
understands his
handle.
role
Yeah,
in the
and
family.
I mean, I think your question was about like his skills, and I think apart from the functional literacy, one of the things that I worked with him early on is that we realized that he loved to watch cooking shows. I mean, this is like back when he was 4, and he loved watching cooking shows. So we, initially he loved eating French toast. So we taught him how to make French toast, which is a relatively simple thing to do. Um, Except we taught him to do that when he was 7.
Yeah, so 10
And
to 12.
so, to work your way around the kitchen. And then I realized he liked watching, these cooking shows on television. So um,
Baking. He started experimenting with baking by
making and
himself.
by himself, like he got into it. So we realized, okay, so here's a career path that he could go into. So we actively started like working with him on cooking. And there are certain dishes that he makes really well, and he knows the ingredients and he knows how to make them. Like
And he likes to experiment
he
also.
likes,
He'll ask, he'll like look at, he'll pull out something and he'll, ask us whether he can, toss this in as well. It's not even on the ingredient thing list, but he'll want to try it. So it's fun to
yeah,
see,
I
to do
mean,
that with
he
him.
makes a mean Cajun chicken
Chicken
pasta. I mean, that's one of his
Great.
special dishes that he does really well. And so in terms of skills, the easy thing was to find something that he enjoys and just grow that. And we were lucky that this is something he enjoys, and it works for him. So we've been working on that.
That's beautiful. Can I ask you to share, a couple of tips? So for the parents who are watching today, you've demonstrated very well how he's, independent. He's actually managing his siblings now, throughout the day. A couple of tips for parents who are at the stage where they're introducing, for example, home education or these life skills for their children. So how would what would you like to share for them?
You need to chill.
That's a big one, yeah? You need to chill.
That is
People
actually,
need to take a step back and relax. A lot of
Okay.
parents, it's a lot of expectations on what's going to happen. Like if the child is not progressing at a certain pace,
Hmm.
and it's true of all children, not just ones with autism, that you've got to just take a step back and say that's fine. Children
Yeah.
grow at different speeds, and so certainly with these guys, you've just got, it's always going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. And if you just feel frustrated, then it's not going to be fun. So you've got to just kind of take your hands up and say, we'll just go on this journey, and I'm not going to be in control. I'm just going to let it happen. We're just going to keep trying every day. And the idea is not success, the idea is progress.
and it's very
That's
interesting,
nice.
Uzma, I mean, since you brought that up, that I've worked with a lot of children on the spectrum, and most of the time, the children who actually do well in class, well in their own way, it's the parents. You see the relationship, you see how the parents are, you see how much space the parents give them, how calm the parents are, and you can see that in the child. You can see exactly the same energy in the child. But if the parent is like frustrated and all over the place and just wants to get the child into a center and see some amazing results, that's too much pressure they're putting on the child, and then you'll see that stress on the child as well. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's so important for the parents to work on themselves and what they want, for themselves and for the child before they actually start working on the child.
Yeah. So
A,
they
a
they,
really
they
good
mirror.
example.
Yeah,
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 exactly. A really good example of
exactly.
that is when Farah drives with Suleiman alone.
Oh yeah.
So in Malaysia, Farah would sometimes get lost on the highways, even with following Google Maps. Suleiman is
Yeah.
very intuitive about directions. Take him to a place
Has
once,
my
and he
body
knows
language.
exactly where to go. Like if you miss a turn, he's gonna look at you
He
going,
immediately senses.
"What's the plan, buddy?" So with Farah, he typically would have these instances where if Farah was taking him for a play date or a gym date or something, and Farah missed a thing,
Yeah. I start panicking
Farah starts
because
panicking.
I don't know
Suleiman
where I'm gonna end up.
absolutely senses it, and Suleiman starts going into a thing, and that turns Farah into more panicking, and so you can take this
It's
vicious cycle that kind of snowballs out effect. And he can sense it. He senses when I'm lost. Like if I'm driving and I'm kind of like not sure, he can literally feel the vibrations of my car to say, "You are not sure what you're doing, and so I am not happy
yeah,
with this."
and then he gets
So if
anxious.
a child can
Yeah.
find that out, he can absolutely distinguish your mood at home. And so that's why I said you just need to be kind of go with the flow, so a little bit of a hippie mantra.
Wow, that's great. Because my next question would have been, how do you manage your emotions? So, I mean, really, how you've mentioned go with the flow, chill. And is that how your typical day would look like in terms of emotions? I mean, or do we have, as parents, with autistic children, we often go up and down, with our emotions, but typically how would you be on a I mean, we have good days and not so many good days as well, but how would it be overall for you on a good day? And how do you manage your emotions?
We've actually come a really long way, because that used to be a big struggle. I came from this whole ABA background where everything had to be, compliant based, controlled, and there's always a way to get things done. You have to get all the boxes checked, and he has to follow through on all of that. And then Danish went ahead and did Sunrise, which is like completely the opposite of the whole ABA approach. It's like, it's more child centric in that sense. And
Yeah.
it's like respecting the child, respecting when the child wants to do what. True, as parents, we've got so much on our plate, and that's difficult to manage as well. But then I think we've been practicing and practicing. And now we know when we want to get something done from Suleiman, it's always, we immediately remember it's the tone we say it in, and he'll immediately comply if you have the right tone. So we're still a work in
Yeah,
progress.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Still a work in
but
progress, but
it's we've come a long way from the time where we would talk to him the way we would talk generally and expect him to do, whatever we want him to do. It doesn't work that way. We also realized we had to be a different set of parents for our 4 children. They're all so
Okay.
different. Yeah, they're all so different. We had to be different parents for each one of them. So yeah,
Yeah,
like I said, it's still a work in progress.
that's interesting. So really being conscious about your emotions and portraying yourself in a way which helps him stay calm.
Yes.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
I mean, how do you, we talk to a lot of parents
Yeah.
that call us asking for help for their kids. And in actuality, 95% of actually calling us because they need help
For
for
themselves rather
themselves.
than for the
Yeah.
child.
Right. So there's enough people helping the kid. They just want to meet another parent and kind of figure out, listen, you guys look happy. Like, what's going on?
You shouldn't be
And you
happy.
shouldn't be,
You
you're
have an
unnaturally
autistic.
happy for a child who's that autistic. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so we have these conversations with these guys in terms of how to manage emotions. And I honestly don't know how because we've done it. Like, I think us now versus us 5 years ago,
Oh
we're
yeah.
different. We're
We're a different
different
couple.
people.
Yeah.
It's just when you've gone through battle and you've got the scars on your body, right? And then something like a meltdown happens or a bad day happens, you've just seen so much
Yeah.
that you're like,
Yeah.
versus, so I feel for a parent whose child is 5 and they've only been this
On this
on
journey
this
for
for like
those
a couple of years and stuff, and they
Mm.
and they like going, man, I wish I was like you. Like, you will be like me. Just
you will get there.
just get slapped often enough and you will develop a really thick skin.
Yeah.
Just patience. And so honestly, like, regulating emotion is really hard. I think the way I did it was that it might sound corny, but it was just a really sort of unwavering belief in God, that things happen for a reason, and that He is this way for a reason, and there's got to be good in it, and there's nothing bad in anything that happens. And I think literally that is the only
Thing that keeps
belief
us.
that
Yeah.
I have that keeps me sane, that everything that happens from a place of good. And so I may not see it at the time, but that's where it's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Absolutely. So that's really important. I mean, sharing that with other parents today, and I'm sure that's, that's super helpful for them too. And I also feel now, going back, if you look back 5 years to now, we're at that point where we're moving on from the autism awareness to more of understanding and accepting, the acceptance stage. So hopefully that should help parents, and they're in a better position than we were, 5 or 10 years ago. Would you agree to that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when we started off and when we would ask parents what they did, they're like, oh, at the time that our kids were diagnosed with autism, there was really nothing there.
Yeah.
But now there are things, there's services now, so you can at least suggest that,
Yeah.
okay, this is what your child likes to do. Why don't you consider doing this, this, this? There was really
Yeah.
nothing there before. Like, 10 years earlier, there wasn't that much.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
still there is no, I still don't think there's a roadmap for parents when a child gets diagnosed. And so I still
There's
think
so much
parents,
confusion.
parents, to be honest, I think parents get taken for a ride. I mean, I get questions from it. I went to a doctor and they recommended doing, behavioral therapy or this therapy or that therapy, and I'm going, on what basis? There was no testing done, nobody evaluated, nobody sat down.
No screening, no
So
proper
somebody, you go to a
assessment.
doctor and says, oh, your kid needs this, you didn't take a second opinion or a third, you didn't speak to a support group or anything, and you started paying $150 an hour for, I don't know, 6 months, 6 to 8 times a month. There is no roadmap. Nobody gives you a roadmap for this stuff, saying, okay, what is the first thing? And now parents call and say, well, I can't afford it. Like they go to a clinical psychologist and psychologist says, this is the center. They go to the center and the first thing the center does is, well, your kid needs
All our services.
12 sessions. And I told Farah this early on when we started going to these centers. And I said, don't you find it funny that when we go to a center that offers speech, that they say the solution to our problem is speech therapy. But when we go to a center that only offers OT, they say the problem to our solution is OT. And then it really hit home one day
Solution to our
when
problem.
we went to a center that had something new called VBT. Do you
At
remember?
the time, verbal behavior, yeah.
Verbal behavior therapy. And I was bleeding money through the sides on different kinds of therapies for them at the time. And so what they did is they ran a little, 45-minute session with Suleiman. And they came back and they said, oh, by the way, he needs to do this thing. This is the new big thing, VBT, verbal behavior therapy. And he needs 12 sessions. So that's three times a week. And it's $500 a session. And so I looked at them and I said, you know what? I can't pay that. I can't afford that. And I always remember this. And they said, well, what can you afford? And I looked at Farah and I said,
why does it matter?
What do you mean? So the idea was, can you afford 4? We'll go with 4. Sounds fantastic, right? And I thought, this isn't therapy. If I had cancer and I went to the hospital and they said, well, what kind of treatment can you afford? So we'll just give you a few stems and roots and you take that because that's what you can afford. That makes no sense to me. And I thought, Farah, this is what it is. And so parents are still being scammed left, right, and center from these places because I know for a fact it still happens. And so the point that I was trying to make was somebody needs to create a navigational guide. What is the first thing you need to do? Because me and Farah, we are doing this on the phone with parents right now. The first thing we're saying is, guys, forget about the center. 1 session, 2 sessions a week is not the cure to your problems. What you do at home is what you can do, right? So diet, right? Parents are spending $3,000 a month on therapy, and the child's diet is McDonald's nuggets. It's not going to help. So diet, nutrition, exercise, these are things parents can do at home. All you need to do is take out a little bit of time. Those are the first things you need to attack yourself. And then if you want to go in terms of a healing route, you can always look at Chinese medicine, homeopathic medicine, which is less invasive, less harmful, and way cheaper than going any other route before you even come to the idea that you are going to do therapy. Because, and I still believe this, autism starts inside and it manifests outside, right? Like all illnesses, if you have a headache and you are unable to talk, people are going to come around you, you're going to be irritated, and people are going to say, that person is a real jackass. But it's the headache. And people with migraine will always say, I'm not a bad person, it's just a constant throbbing. Now imagine the same child cannot process dairy or eggs and is constantly in a state of flux with his stomach. And now you are sitting there saying, right, sit on the table, hands on the table.
Yeah.
Don't flap your hands on the... I need to flap my hands because my stomach is killing me. and you're not letting me regulate myself. And so with parents, I always say it starts inside. Fix the inside, the outside will fix itself.
I've got a question here.
That's, yeah, that's such valid, you've made such valid points here, and I'm sure many parents here today are benefiting from what you've said. So I really appreciate that. Um, managing your emotions first, and then working with your child, empowering yourself, then empowering the child is what we're really looking at. So focusing on the parents, right? And then moving on to working with your child and trusting yourself, believing in yourself, and then seeing results. So it's really, really valid points that you're making here. Thank you. Just moving on to the next thing really is having a little sneak peek in your day. How does your typical day look like at home with Suleiman?
His day starts with, getting his siblings ready for school, like literally getting them ready for school. Uh, yeah. And, if someone's taking too long in the toilet, he'll be like banging the door to make sure that they don't overstay.
Wow.
Yeah, goes, gets, drops them off to school, comes back, has his breakfast, gets ready makes his bed, by the way. And most of the time he ends up making his siblings' beds as well, because, they rush out. So he makes their bed, cleans up his room, gets ready. And I have a small school set up here as well at my place. So I've got other kids coming in who are on the spectrum. So he makes sure he's ready by the time they come in. We do brain gym a lot in our homeschool setup, and that really actually helps. And that probably answers Fauzia's question on self-regulation. That's helped him a lot, and that's something. I'm a certified brain gym facilitator, so that helps him start the day in a very calm manner, and the other kids as well. So they enjoy doing that. We do that, and after that, we start with our tabletop activities. We have group activities, and then we're done by around one. And then he goes to pick up his siblings.
He goes to pick up his siblings. I mean, this is obviously Ramadan right now, but like on average, he would go to pick up his siblings, come back, have lunch, and he knows that that is his time with the television. So we've mandated that the afternoon you can absolutely have it.
Yeah.
With a few key clauses. It cannot be anything repetitive. It has to be something that if he's watching a cartoon on Netflix, I have no problem with that. If he's watching a cooking show, no problem. It cannot be anything repetitive. So he does have a tendency to, for example, watch the Gruffalo on repeat. But I think over the last month, that has stopped.
Yeah.
Because I kept saying that, you can watch. So he gets 2 hours of screen time, which I know is a lot, but he kind of
earns it because he does
everything else. 4 o'clock on a typical day, non-Ramadan, they would be out to the park, and so they're gonna get some fresh air. And I want to throw them out of the house around
4:30 now.
And back by 7. Get your hands dirty, come back, take a shower, sit down for dinner, play a few games. We try to do a few board games, or like things like we play things like Uno. So I've got the kids to kind of nominate themselves and say everybody once a week, each child has to give 30 minutes to Suleiman and play one-on-one something with him. So like the younger ones will play Uno or Snakes and Ladders or something, and it's the 30-minute activity, and then basically it's chill and go to bed.
Great. Okay, that's lovely to hear. A nice, insightful day on Suleiman and his family. I'm sure other parents are going to be appreciating that too. Just moving on a little bit from, we spent some time talking about education and how you kind of structure your day with him. At this point, the question is, I see here, obviously both mum and dad here are hands-on, which is so beautiful. We often hear, mums are the ones worrying about the child in the early days, pre-diagnosis, or even to get a diagnosis. Mum is the one that's picking up the signs, running to see a therapist or running to see a doctor, for example. And the father is often in denial, or saying, it's just a boy, he's just being silly, or she's okay, so it's often we often hear this. I mean, I work with parents, and I hear many moms coming to me saying the fathers just don't get it, and here I see both of you sitting here very involved. What can you share today for the fathers out there who are watching as well? So this goes to Danish.
Look, I mean, if somebody's going to be in denial, there really isn't much that you can do about it. I think it kind of depends on where you're from and societal pressures. So, for example, we're in Pakistan, and a lot of the families that we speak to, um, Pakistani fathers tend to have, they're patriarchal families, and so they find it an embarrassment, as it's something they've done that's wrong, or it's a way of punishment from God or something like that, of that sort. And so um, I have met incredibly well educated, well read individuals who do not want to spend time with their kids who are autistic. And so, with all that education and everything, it's simply an ego that will not allow you to admit that your child is different, because you consider it a mistake. And so, to be very honest, I mean, there's nothing you can tell a father in terms. I mean, if for example, let's imagine we're not talking about children with special needs. Let's imagine we're talking about regular kids. Many women still complain that fathers don't spend enough time with their kids, right? They work more, and they end up seeing their kids at, a little bit at night, weekends maybe. I think that is a common problem, and I don't think that's particularly for children with special needs. I think for sure it's exacerbated by the fact that it might seem embarrassing, but there really is no way. I mean, this is your own flesh and blood, and if you cannot own up, I mean, I guess awareness is one thing. So the idea of in our society teaching not just awareness but acceptance, and that it's okay to have a child with special needs and it's okay to display them to the world. So one of the things that when I know a few different dads through Instagram that are also like me, like we go out and we hang out with our kids and we show the world this guy's autistic, how cool is that? And so the only thing that I have done differently is that I have not hidden Suleiman's autism when we go out. That I've actually put it all there, on display. In any situation, from being at the grocery store and Suleiman having a bit of a meltdown, to being at a stadium, to anywhere, and just letting people see, this is it. I'm okay. He's my kid, and he's having a rough patch. He's dealing with something, and that's okay. I mean, that's really all we can do. There is almost nothing you can. I don't know. I don't think, unless you do some real one-on-one therapy with parents and fathers to get them to be more involved.
Yeah.
Okay, so saying,
that was a bit
really
cynical.
being involved, being involved and really accepting your child, the way they are, and then moving forward from that, and allowing the people, like the world, to see that people are different. Every individual is different, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and not to be too apologetic as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that is something we learned to stop doing, because we would always like, oh sorry, he's a bit loud, oh sorry, he's flapping his hands. And now we're like, he's flapping his hands, there's so much distraction around anyway, why should just his hand flapping be something I should be apologetic for? And like I've mentioned this before, they can hear it and they can understand it, that their parents are constantly having to apologize for them.
Yeah.
And I always feel that what that does to their self-esteem, I've seen that happen to my brother. That I'm always that I used to be, because I was a kid at that time, I didn't know any better. So I would always be apologizing for him being different. And when he could talk and he actually expressed, and he's like, oh, are you going to ignore me, or are you going to tell me to go in my room? And that's when I realized that he's been internalizing all of this for so many years. And I'm like, I'm not going to let my son go through that. What I did unconsciously with my brother.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting that you're saying that, because they're observing and they're watching everything we do and our actions, which is so important. We have to be very mindful around our children. So yeah, this is really insightful. Thank you. We just want to move. I mean, we could spend all day talking about your experience and how much you're benefiting the community at large. But moving on to some questions, I see questions popping up in the chat box. I just want to move on to the questions. So Jacob, if there's anything that's come up, I see one or two. I don't know if you see any more coming up here to just ask Danish if
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think here we've got Rabia. So which school is there in Karachi which is really helping autistic kids?
School, I mean, I've heard of a couple of inclusive schools in Karachi. I can't remember the name at the top of my head. I think Oaks was probably one of them. There are one or two who claim to be inclusive. I don't have any experience with these schools. So, I can't unfortunately name.
To be very
And I
honest,
don't know what kind of help
yeah, these things
you're
fluctuate, and so
depending on the child.
yeah, and depending on the school. I mean, I might tell you that so and so school is quite good with inclusivity, but my information might be a year old, and their situation might have changed. The only real way to kind of figure this thing out is to call a school and ask them, what plans do you have in place for special needs children? Either they're going to say, yeah, we have some, we don't have some, and
It's
so
the way they respond to you,
absolutely,
actually, though.
yeah, and so you've got to go in there and you've got to do your own due diligence and see what the school is actually offering, more than just. So when we went to the school with Suleiman, it was, we don't have a special needs program, we'd like to, so we would like to have your child if your shadow comes in,
We'll
which
experiment
essentially
with your
meant
child.
we will take your kid in. We don't have the resources, the know-how, or really the desire to go above and beyond what we're doing right now. So we're letting your kid come in, as long as he doesn't disrupt the class. He can be there in spirit, and whether he learns anything or not, really, we're not that concerned about it. So that is an attitude many schools will take. Sure, we want to be known as inclusive, bring your kid in, which is great. But I don't want my kid to be there just for the purpose of being there and for me to brag to my colleagues at work and family that, oh, my kid goes to so and so school. I couldn't care less. So you've got to go to the school, you've got to ask them the hard questions, and you've got to say, show me what you've got in place. What happens when this happens? What happens when that happens?
Yeah.
And if they don't have a special needs department with a qualified coordinator, if they don't have teachers that have been trained in basic special needs education in terms of identifying problem, challenges with children, and behavioral challenges, if they have no clue, they've not been trained,
that's your answer then.
run as fast as you can out of that school.
Great, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Thank
do we have time for quite probably a couple of questions as well?
Yeah,
here's an interesting one from Sana. What are the options for someone who cannot homeschool?
Private tuition. Get a private tutor. If your child is facing learning challenges, so for example, if they're on the spectrum, and they are verbal, they are functioning, but they have learning challenges, they're slow learners, then get a private tutor. It is actually far more beneficial.
Yeah.
You would probably end up spending roughly the same amount if you get a good tutor, particularly when they're young, because one single tutor can teach many subjects. And if you focus on the core subjects that you have, so for example, if you focus on math and science, and critical thinking, then you'd be far better off and getting the child ready up for doing, if you desire to have them do their O levels. If you focus on 4 or 5 core subjects, you can absolutely have them ready with a private tutor. I know parents, in fact, I know this one particular parent in Malaysia who homeschooled his child and got them to do their O levels at the age of 12 and 13, and and by 14 they had finished their A levels.
Yeah.
And he homeschooled them and he got them private tutoring. And he said to me that they only started preparing for the subject 6 months before they had to give the exam. But those 6 months, they lived and breathed that subject every day, all day. And it was just a paper, right? And there's always a skill to passing a paper. And so you could do that. So getting a private tutor, focusing on that, works as well. If you have a non-verbal child.
That's basically, I mean, I don't know if she's in Dubai or in Pakistan, but you've got therapists like everywhere now, ABA therapists everywhere. You would need someone to guide you, and you could probably take this on or you could have someone trained coming in and teach you basically as a mother how to do it. But then, okay,
No, but I think then you're putting
don't
the
want homeschool.
you're putting the cart before the horse. You want
What
to.
about visuals? Like really.
But then that is what you're trained, they train you to do as well, to make visuals. And I mean, that's how I was trained as well, that, this is how the child is learning, and you will have to break it up like that, and, task analysis and all of that. I was taught that.
True.
And then I would break up, because the school that Suleiman went to, I had to get all his resources ready. So I would have to, find visuals to support his learning. I did all of that. So if the same, I mean, and the idea would be the same if I'm homeschooling, or if I have another tutor who's coming at home, and provide that tutor the resources he needs or she needs to teach my child.
Yeah, but I still think you're putting the cart before the horse.
You think so?
The problem is not the child's abilities to do physics equations. The problem is the child is nonverbal, right?
Work on interaction.
When I mean, the thing is with Sunrise, the idea is that you work on these things first. These are more important. So forget about English and math for a second. Focus all of your time on developing a relationship, because the way Sunrise works is that you can get a child to be verbal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's 100% belief that unless there is a biological problem, a physiological problem, that you can get a child to be verbal. You can get a child to communicate. And so that is what you need to be working on. Spending your money on the right direction in terms of, and the thing is, I would say speech therapy, but speech therapy is incredibly expensive and something that most parents can afford 1, 2, or maybe 3 times a week. That is not how you learn a skill. Any person who learns any skill anywhere will tell you, if you want to be good at something, you're going to do it every day, 5 to 6 hours a day, and you're going to be really good at it. Being verbal is exactly the same. To be articulate, to be eloquent. I'll tell parents immediately, go do the Sunrise program. Just to make sure I don't get anything from these guys. But I tell them because it's something that parents can do themselves and train themselves to work on their child.
That's true. Even though Suleiman was verbal, we saw a different side of Suleiman when he started Sunrise with him. He wanted to interact. He wanted to be around us. And then obviously with my whole ABA approach, he didn't want to. He's like, because every session seemed like a therapy session, right? There were demands being placed on him. So he's like, oh God, this is like, I've gone from one therapy session into another therapy session. So Sunrise is more about,
Sunrise is more, listen, buddy, I want to help you. I get you. I want to be in your world, but you got to help me. Right, I absolutely want to give you whatever you want, but I'm not understanding what's going on. So you need to, and then celebrating when you even hear the slightest sound. So, for example, if your kid wants a ball, and he comes to you, and most parents, by the way, will do this. The kid comes to you, tugs at your shirt, and you're like, okay, here, take this, off you go. There is no incentive for your child to speak when you do that, right? And Sunrise says, when your child comes in, tugs in your shirt, you go, you like my shirt? And the kid's like, no, I don't care about your shirt. So he's hungry, right? And so he starts opening the cabinet. Oh, you like cabinets? That's a cabinet. That's nice. Look at that. Goes up and down. Great. Fantastic. Child gets frustrated, right? You're smiling all the time. Child gets frustrated. Oh, and then he starts putting his hands inside. Yeah, look, so much space. We can put so many things in here. We can put noodles, we can put this, and the kid after 15 minutes goes, nah, and you go, fantastic, nah, would you like noodles, or there's something else with N, or something else with N? He goes, nah, noodles, is that what you want? Fantastic. So what have you just told the child? Doing this, pointing, is just going to lead to frustration. Nah gets your parent real excited, real happy, and actually gets you what you want. So the next time he's going to go, and then he's going to go, wait a minute, nah, and you're going to go, and you're going to keep pushing him once you've got that nah out, and you're going to say, oh, you want some nice thing or something else with N, and you're going to go until he goes, no, No,
eventually come out.
and eventually it'll come out. And the day that word comes out, you're
Yeah.
going to feel like you won the lottery.
That's actually very similar to floor time therapy as well, because that's what Suleiman used to. Yeah, I remember sitting through all those sessions and Suleiman being frustrated, and then finally the words coming out of his mouth. Oh my God, I remember them so vividly.
And I've done these with Suleiman a lot over the last
Yeah.
2 years, where he'll come to me and I'll keep handing him things, and I'm smiling the entire time. Like, yeah, you can take this, you can take this, you can take this. And I have seen this. I have seen him say that first alphabet to making the whole syllable, from monosyllables coming to the entire word. And then, and then he says noodles, and I'm going, yeah, I like noodles too. And then, moving on. And then him saying, I want noodles. So like, oh, great, fantastic, lovely. You want noodles? Here it is. Wasn't that easy? Wasn't it easier to just go, I want noodles, than to just go, no, or noodles? And that's how you are essentially training them to say words and getting them to make those words into smaller sentences.
Wow,
So
that's beautiful. That's really nice that you shared that experience. I
pause,
think,
pause before the cart.
yeah. Last question. I think we only have time for the last question now. What is it, Rabia, Jacob, or Sana asking the last question here?
Well, which question are we looking at? Is it
It's
the
the
sunrise?
sunrise program. Yes, correct. How much is a sunrise
Yeah,
program? I
so-
think maybe
This is a quick
contact you
one. I can do
guys.
that. You can probably get the other one as well. Other question. So if you
Yep.
go to the Autism Treatment Center of America, if you Google that up, you'll find Sunrise program. If you do it online, it costs about $1,000. But they do have discounts at certain times of the year, so you can probably get it for as low as $750. You pay them one time, and you get access to the entire library for about a year. The videos run you through about 8 weeks, so you do those videos over a period of 8 weeks. They tell you exactly how to set up your sunrise room and how you should be doing sunrise. And the beautiful thing about sunrise is that, unlike a one-on-one session that you might do, sunrise can be done all the time, anytime. It's just that's who you become, interacting with your child at all time. And you can actually teach your other siblings to say, when he does this, I would like you to do this. So you can check the cost out, and it's absolutely 100% worth it.
Great. Thank you. So really, sorry, Jacob.
Sorry, sorry, Asma. Farah and Danish, people are asking about your social media. I know I've put some, but I'm not sure if you would like to add more in the comments, and then I can show it for like social media, page, blog, Insta. So I'll leave that to you to
We are
decide.
incredibly lazy people. We don't do blogs, and we don't do podcasts, and we barely
Lazy is not the word. Busy is the word.
Sure.
Busy. True.
We're busy
I like
people.
that.
So we just have Instagram pages. Farah is Autism Tales, and I am autism.dad. And they can follow us. And so I try and provide more sort of quality content in terms of techniques and things that I do with Suleiman. So when you follow my post, you kind of see, oh, he did this.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps.
Great. Thank you very much. And I think we'll
have
have
we
to.
asked about? Are we
Sorry.
finishing up?
We are, but if you have another question.
I just wanted to double check if we asked about how to start homeschooling a 6-year-old child on the spectrum.
Okay, I missed that question.
we asked
Rabia here,
this?
yeah. How to homeschool a 6-year-old child on the spectrum? We didn't, but we covered quite a bit on homeschooling. But if you want to quickly, 30 seconds, a minute to answer that question, if possible.
So
basically how homeschooling started with us was that I had a shadow aide from the Philippines fly in, and Suleiman was in mainstream school. When that wasn't working out, I was basically in on all the sessions that she was in. So it was so gradual and so easy for us to transition into.
Actually, I think in the interest of time, there's certain things that you need to do if you want to homeschool your child. Number one, go on Facebook and find a community of homeschoolers near you. Join the group, speak to other parents that are doing things, and try and be part of their club, which is exactly what she did.
That is actually,
She went to Malaysia, she found a group. Parents help parents, especially when they're homeschooling parents. So do that. Second of all, if you go to Farah's Instagram profile, you can find tons of resources. So for example, we recently started working on with a website called Twinkle, Twinkl. And we use that a lot. If you're homeschooling, you'll get incredible amount of resources for your child's age and skill level. There's always Khan Academy. We use that a lot for mathematics. And IXL is between IXL, Khan Academy, and Twinkle.
Kiko's lab for cognitive skill development.
Kiko's lab, you will pretty much have all of these resources. You don't have to worry about what am I teaching my child. It's all literally broken down by year and by subject, so you can choose and you can have all of this the resources to kind of say this is how I'm going to teach your child. YouTube is a fantastic resource if you're teaching science particularly and you want to teach things like photosynthesis or how volcanoes work. Beautiful, tons of videos out there, very entertaining, that you can work with your child. So this is what I would do. Join a community, find your resources and figure it out, and don't stress about it.
Great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And I'm sure all the audience out there is, excited about learning more from your Instagram handles too. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for your time, Danish. Thank you for your time, Farah. I really appreciate it. I know it's Ramadan and we're getting close to breaking our fast, especially in Pakistan now, yeah? So thank you again, and we look forward to having you join us soon.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate your time. You're welcome.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Suleiman. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right.